Hi and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be comparing 5 different tyre dressings, and we've got Meguiar's Endurance Tyre Gel, Gtechniq T1 Tyre and Trim, Garage Therapy 1 Tyre Serum, Chem's Tyre Gel, and finally Super Polish Pro Tyre Glaze formula. So both the Super Polish Pro and the Garage Therapy products, if you read the labels you'll notice that they have sort of additional benefits, both protective and replenishing. You'll often hear the Garage Therapy one being described as not a dressing but a conditioner instead, and I think that is very true. However, these additional properties are really hard to measure in a video like this. So this video is about comparing all 5 products just as single-use products rather than seeing what they look like when used over a longer period, as I know that some people do like to switch up the type of products they use on the tyres. So before I applied any of the products, I wanted to prepare the tyres as much as possible. So I actually used 4 rounds of Autoglanz Rebound. Definitely overkill, but made sure that the tyres were properly prepared. To apply the products, I used a cut-up sponge, which I know isn't ideal. Some of these products prefer to be applied using a brush or a specific foam applicator designed for tyres, but I didn't have 5 separate ones of those, so this was my best way of doing it, whilst ensuring all the applicators were clean to start with. So the first product you can see here being applied is Chem's Tyre Gel. So you can see when this first goes on, it is very dark and quite glossy, to be honest. When it dries it's a little bit less glossy than this, although I would describe it as a reasonably shiny gel. In terms of consistency, it's not the thickest or the thinnest, which makes it quite easy to work with because it doesn't soak into the applicator immediately, nor is it difficult to spread. It does have a tendency to go a tiny bit patchy if you don't work it in properly, but a proper applicator here probably would have solved that issue. Also, I am well aware that the paintwork and the wheel arches on this car are not cleaned whilst I'm dressing these tyres. I'm trying to get this particular vehicle as dirty as possible for a future video, so please try not to let it bother you too much. Next, we've got the Garage Therapy Tyre Serum. So this is a very thin product, so soaks into the applicator reasonably quickly, so you've got to work a little bit faster to actually get it on the tyres. But once it's on there, it is very easy to spread, and I never run into any issues in terms of patchiness and streaks with this one. This is a product that benefits from 2 layers when you first apply it. So I did that here, and I actually did that with all the tyre dressings and left about an hour between applying them all again. Next, we've got Meguiar's Endurance Tyre Gel, which is a pretty thick gel. I'd definitely say it was a bit thicker than the Chem one. So it takes a little bit more working in, although it doesn't soak into the applicator quite as much. When you apply it, you can see that it is very glossy. It does dry to a sort of less glossy finish. However, when you apply a second layer, you do get a finish pretty similar to this. So you do have to work this one in quite well to avoid it becoming patchy. I know that a preferred method of using this product is actually to use a brush, but I generally prefer to use foam applicators. Next, we've got Super Polish Pro Tyre Glaze formula, which is the only sprayable one we've got here. Being a sprayable product, it's definitely the easiest to apply for me out of all of these. You can just slap it on and not run into any issues in terms of it streaking or any patches and things like that. It's a very easy product to apply and you don't need much of it at all. Finally, we've got the Gtechniq T1 Tyre and Trim, which is a similar consistency to the Tyre Gel by Chem, perhaps slightly thinner, so it does soak into the applicator a little bit more. You can see me applying a little bit more to the applicator here, and that's because it did soak in reasonably quickly, so I just wanted to make sure I'd got enough actually on there. It's an easy product to work in, not too patchy, but does have a slight tendency. You do have to work it in probably a little bit more around the Tyre Serum or the sprayable product by Super Polish Pro. So as I said, I applied 2 layers of all of these products and then let the products dry for around 30 minutes before taking some photos so you could see what the finish actually looked like. So here is the overview of the tyre, and here is a zoomed in shot. So I would say that the Chem, Meguiar's and Gtechniq are all fairly glossy dressings, whereas the Garage Therapy one is more of a satin finish, The Super Polish Pro on the other hand is more of a sort of matte finish, to be honest. It definitely has a darkening effect but doesn't really add much in terms of sheen or gloss to the tyres. I also wanted to check, of course, the durability of these products. Now this is after the first week when the car had driven 200 miles. It hadn't actually rained in this time when it was driving, so not too bad conditions, and you can see the finishes here. So starting with the car chem one, definitely had a good level of darkening effect still and pretty even. The Garage Therapy one, again pretty even, a few patches where you could see a bit of mud stuck on there, but definitely had a little bit more of a browner tinge to it than the car chem one. We've also got the Meguiar's Endurance Tyre Gel, which is definitely quite dark, a tiny bit patchy in some places. The Super Polish Pro had suffered the most, and the Gtechniq one, similar to the car chem one, are quite a dark and even finish here. So these products were left on for another week on this car, where it was driven for another 200 miles, but this time it rained pretty much every day the car was driven. So you can see here that the car chem one is definitely still looking pretty dark, quite an even finish still. The Garage Therapy one, looking a little bit browner, definitely taking a bit of a hit. The Meguiar's Endurance, still quite dark but quite patchy at this stage. The Super Polish Pro, I'd say, definitely looked the worst out of them all, quite patchy and brown. And finally the Gtechniq one, looked pretty good here, quite a decent darkening effect and a pretty even finish, and you can see the zoomed in shots here of what they all look like against each other. So in order to look at the durability a little bit further, I sprayed some water on using a jet washer, and this was before washing. You can see that the car chem one is repelling water pretty well, a little bit of degradation in some patches but generally doing well. The Garage Therapy one, similar story but perhaps degraded a little bit more, particularly on the inside of the tyre wall. The Meguiar's Endurance, despite looking pretty patchy, was actually doing really well in terms of water behaviour, quite consistent and definitely beading pretty well. The Super Polish Pro tyre glaze was of course the most hit here, pretty flat water behaviour and not too much else to say. The Gtechniq T1, similar story to car chem, a little bit of degradation on the inner wall, but generally doing quite well. So I wanted to wash them to see whether I could bring back any of that finish or water behaviour. So I used High Definition Details Breakthrough Wheel Shampoo and a soft brush. I actually put 20ml of this product into an IK foamer, sprayed it all over the tyres and then just worked it in quite gently using the brush. So the aim here was to provide a decent level of agitation and sort of chemical cleaning, but nothing that was going to be too aggressive, both mechanically and chemically, so that we were going to strip any of the products. I didn't want to do that at all. I wanted to refresh them to see whether that was possible and what they would look like, rather than hitting them with any sort of heavy tyre cleaners that would probably just remove all the products at this stage. So looking again at the water behaviour, the car chem was similar here. The Garage Therapy one, probably same again, not too much of a difference between it being washed, definitely still repelling water to a decent level. The Meguiar's Endurance was still doing very well here, it hadn't taken a hit using that wheel shampoo at all. The Super Polish Pro was on its last legs here, a little bit of water repellency but definitely nothing to write home about here. And the Gtechniq T1, similar story to car chem, again bit of degradation on the inner wall but nothing too bad, looking pretty good here. So in terms of the finish, here's what you can see as we go around. The car chem one was probably looking the best here, quite a good darkening effect and still quite an even finish. Moving on to the Garage Therapy one now. A little bit browner than the car chem one for sure, and a few patches of mud that are stuck on there still. A little bit patchy but nothing too bad. The Meguiar's Endurance one at the top here, that was definitely starting to look quite patchy here. Still decent darkening effect, but yeah, the patches were a little bit of a problem. Over to the right we've got the Super Polish Pro, and that was definitely sort of the brownest and the patchiest finish I'd say at this stage. And then moving down to the Gtechniq one, pretty similar to car chem but slightly patchier, still a decent darkening effect, but I would say that car chem was probably the best out of the 5 here. So let me know in the comments which one you like the look of the most, and if you have any recommendations for me. I'm currently using the Garage Therapy one as I really like the finish of that, and I've got some really good performance having used it for quite a few months now and sort of layering up the product and getting a good base layer down. I've definitely noticed a dramatic increase in performance versus when I first applied it, so I'll pop a link in the description to my video and update on that product. If you have enjoyed this video, it would be brilliant if you could give it a like. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.